time for their journey had come. The time to cast off the veil of darkness and bring the world once more into light.
In 2022, Square Enix released Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. This is a game that they made in collaboration with Team Ninja over at Tecmo Koei, or Koei Tecmo. Either way, they made this game 2 years ago, and it was one that kind of had a rough launch and a rough first impression. But over time, it seems like the dust settled and it has quite a fan base, and a lot of people said, this game is actually pretty good. So it was on PlayStation Plus Extra tier, and it was in its last few weeks before it got delisted, so I had to sit down, focus up, and run through it. As a hardcore Final Fantasy fan, this is one I always missed and kind of put off, but I'm glad I actually sat down and played it. With the long preamble out of the way, let's take a look at Final Fantasy Origin Stranger of Paradise. Oh wait, is it Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy? Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. That is the technical term. Jeez. Just to give a little backstory, Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, I just messed up the name again, was announced in 2021 at, I guess one of the Summer Games Fest, or maybe an E3, I'm not sure when the last E3 was. But this game had an announcement trailer that was kind of infamous. It had the main character, Jack, just constantly spouting the words chaos, 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 chaos. And it kind of made an initial impression of this game that was both hilariously cheesy and over self-serious without realizing how cheesy it was. And that was kind of the initial impression of the game. Not to mention, it didn't really have that great of a trailer just in general. You see some gameplay, and you see some awkward dialogue being cut out from certain cutscenes in the game and just kind of being inserted for trailer purposes. Typical stuff, really, but in terms of an initial announcement trailer, it's definitely not as high quality as you're used to seeing for Square Enix. Anyway, shortly after that, a game demo came out for the PlayStation 5, and I believe the other consoles and even PC after that. But a lot of people noticed something about the game. It looked awful. I remember playing the demo, and it looked like it had to be under 720p. The frame rate was terrible. Like, this was not how you want to reveal and show off your game in its initial viewing. It played pretty okay, but the game's performance was just terrible. A year later, it launched, and it was a little bit better, but even then, a lot of people were kind of taken aback by how this game looks and how it performs. And even now, after who knows how many patches and performance enhancements, Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin still plays not great. Even on the PlayStation 5, this is a cross-gen title, so it does have a PlayStation 4 version. It still just kind of runs pretty grody, even on the PlayStation 5, and it looks not great either. We're used to Final Fantasy being this super high fidelity, super high visual and colorful palette world, and that is not what Stranger of Paradise goes for. It is a darker tone game. They are definitely using the Soulsborne, more specifically Neo vibes that this game was originated from. They wanted to make this a darker game, and it is a darker game that is filled with blood and not so much gore, but there is lots of blood in the game. And the main character, Jack, and the way he fights is very violent, and he even has these takedown attacks where you just kind of like smash into enemies and then turn their blood into crystal, and he just like rips them apart or smashes them. It's really over the top and really silly, but it conveys the themes of Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy all the better. Like I said, its first showing was really bad, but the game that we got eventually turns out to be pretty good. And I think that initial impression of the game made everyone think it's worse than it is, but just looking at the reviews that came out at the time, and some of the reviews that came out after, it seems like this game is hovering around like the high 70s and low 80s in most reviews.
They have an odd sense of humor.
Yeah,
So, Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin is indeed what the title kind of suggests. It is a retelling and a reimagining of the original Final Fantasy, and kind of how that adventure technically begins is what they were going for here. Whether or not this is canon, who cares? It doesn't matter. This is a story that goes to weird places, and it has a lot of fun while doing it. I actually am surprised at how much I enjoyed this story because its initial impression of Jack saying chaos on repeat, having a foul mouth, and blasting Limp Bizkit as the meme suggests. It's really silly and very weird, but after a certain point, it just kind of starts coming together in ways that I wasn't really prepared for. And it came in together in a way that really ticked my own personal boxes. I like stories like this because I think it's kind of cool to mess with a canon that's already existing and just kind of poking at it a little bit and then making something original. So, to not spoil anything, the story is Jack and his companions are the Warriors of Light, but their crystals don't shine, so they have to go out and defeat certain fiends, just like in the original Final Fantasy. So for the first game's playthrough, or your first experience with the story, it kind of seems to just follow the original Final Fantasy's story beats. And then it really doesn't, and there are certain characters who are different, there are certain insert characters who have more prominent roles. It all just kind of doesn't really make sense if you played the original Final Fantasy. And then several twists start happening, and you pick up various items that explain some of the backstory and give hints as to what's going on. And it all just kind of starts making sense, and then you kind of understand what the story is trying to do and what it is ultimately pretty good at achieving, in my opinion. It is a weird story though, so if you aren't prepared for a weird story, or you don't like very weird stories, then this might not be for you in terms of story aspects, but I really enjoyed it. It has some really weird plot twists to it, and I'm here for it. I enjoyed it. But yeah, it does have the weird moments that a lot of people very prominently display about this game. Jack saying bullshit on repeat, Jack saying chaos on repeat, him blasting Limp Bizkit, having Frank Sinatra's I Did It My Way as the main theme. This game is super weird, and I kind of loved it for it. But weird story stuff aside, this is a Souls-like, and it is a pretty good one at that. If you played Koei Tecmo's Nioh series, and I guess at this point Wo Long, and there's maybe one or two others that they've released since then, they've really been just churning these things out, you know what you'll be getting into in terms of combat. This is a Souls-like, but it is Koei Tecmo's Team Ninja's brand of Souls-like combat. That means it's very fast, very responsive, has pretty tight timing windows for the attacks and combos, but in a way that's really satisfying to go about your business while you're playing it. It does seem like Origin, Final Fantasy Stranger of Paradise Origin, geez, it does seem like it has its own brand of things where they kind of tried to lower the barrier a little bit, and I genuinely believe they achieved that by having the controls and combat of this game be a little more forgiving than the average Souls-like, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't have its own hard points and challenges throughout. This is, once again, a Souls-like, and it is made by the Nioh team, which made Nioh, like I said, and Nioh itself was pretty difficult at points, and so is this game too. But that said, it is really rewarding to play and really fun. It does have its own quirks though, because once again, this is the Nioh combat engine and gameplay engine being imported into this, so those quirks, if you didn't really like them, some of them I didn't really like, they're here as well. One of those is the inventory system. Just like in Nioh, you'll be getting various multicolored drops throughout your gameplay. Every enemy is going to be dropping a series of items, and you'll be picking them up and choosing to min and max your build to, you know, enjoy the gameplay's equipment offerings. I wasn't really a big fan of this in Nioh, and that's kind of why I didn't even jump in on Nioh 2. That is here in full display, and it's not as bad as Nioh 1, but If you're not a fan of getting showered with loot all the time and having to sift through everything to choose the best items, you might be a little disappointed to see that return here. Thankfully, there is the option to simply equip best items for your current character or class, so that's what I did to get through the game, and it worked more than fine enough. And I was getting so many different items that even the items that had special abilities or special attacks attached to them, even they would get rotated into the best equipment slot eventually. So I never felt like I wasn't getting new options and new equipment. Like, I would finish the stage and just have multiple options even if I equipped the best items. Like, it was all there for me. So that was pretty cool. This game also has these, I guess they're takedowns or executions or just kill attacks, I don't know what they're called exactly, where an enemy, once they're staggered, Jack can go in for the kill and he can basically crystallize the enemy and then smash or slash or just destroy them. It's pretty neat and unique, and it kind of gives this game its own edge, especially because it's Final Fantasy, and Final Fantasy isn't generally known to be super violent. I guess 16 is kind of up there, but not really. But Stranger of Paradise is a quite violent game in terms of how it tries to present things, and while it's not Mortal Kombat levels, it is quite surprising to see a Final Fantasy game go for the things that it goes for. Especially in that opening cutscene where Garland is just kind of like smashing through all the soldiers in CG. Really cool cutscene. Maybe that's the end. I don't know. I don't remember where that plays. I saw it on YouTube, but anyway, that is a really cool scene, and it kind of shows the level of brutality that they're trying to go for in this game, and it kind of works here. Every enemy has their own unique little animation when they get taken down, but you will see a lot of them on repeat since there are lots of enemies on repeat. Speaking of, the enemy variety in the game isn't this game's best suit. The bosses themselves are all unique, and that's great, but you do kind of cycle through the same enemies for a good portion of the game, and then you'll see other like upgraded versions of them. So there's not a huge amount of variety in the enemies, but you get enough of them that you never really get sick of smashing through them. And once again, because this is made with like the same metrics as Neo, one of the things I was super worried about was replaying stages ad nauseum like Neo makes you do. They fixed that here by not having that many stages. In that, I mean, there are quite a few of them, but there's not an exorbitant amount of stages, and it doesn't ask you to revisit them constantly like Neo does. You can revisit them after you clear them from the main story if you want to do a side quest and get some extra loot or options unlocked. Speaking of options, just like there's lots of equipment, there are multiple classes. So every character has multiple classes they can choose from, but Jack, our main character, gets to choose from all of them. And you unlock them by progressing through skill trees and whatnot. Once you get enough levels, you can unlock nodes on the skill tree, which unlock new abilities, make your job a little bit stronger. And then at the end of the node is usually another job class that you can unlock. And all you have to do to switch classes is just switch weapons or just choose the job from the menu. And each job has their own unique quirks. For instance, Dragoon has unique spear attacks like jump. Summoner is one of the DLC jobs, but it's also in here. You have White Mage that can heal and use Protect and use Dia, the light spell. You have Black Mage, which can use magic. And all of this stuff is represented quite well, and it has lots of variety in its combat as a result. And that's honestly the best part of this game, I think, is just the variety in its combat. Choosing a different stage every time and choosing a different equipment just to go through the stage just because was a really fun part of the game, and using different weapons and equipment and jobs to unlock other different equipment, weapons and jobs is really fun, and the game moves at quite a brisk pace. I will say though, I think some of the stages in this game are quite long, and they feel even longer because the stage visuals are not great. Just like in general, the visuals aren't great. The stage visuals themselves are not great either. Lots of times I found myself getting lost in stages because the path itself isn't very marcated very well. You do get the checkpoints, the orbs or cubes. No, they're called cubes. The cubes. The cubes do get highlighted as you progress through the stages, so you can kind of get a general idea of the direction you're trying to go. But some of the stages here are just like everything just kind of bleeds into itself. But I will say those are fewer and far in between than is worth really complaining about. But I think stage design is one of Koei Tecmo's not highlight points at the moment, and it really shows here in Stranger of Paradise as well. So at the end of the day, I finished Stranger of Paradise, and I kind of sat back and thought to myself, this wasn't great, but I also kind of liked it, and I really enjoyed my time with it, like even to the point where I might actually pick this up if it's on sale even later and grab the DLC just to run through it. It's an easily playable game, thankfully, because it has multiple difficulty modes. It has a casual mode, which I played through, not all of my playthrough with, but it's a casual mode where you do quite a lot of damage to enemies and they get staggered quite easily. You can still die, but it will be a lot easier if you just want to blast through the game and see the story. It also has normal, hard, and a chaos mode. I turned it on chaos mode in the New Game Plus just to see what it gets unlocked. You get even more weapons and equipment and stages and armor and metrics for your maximizing your builds. Like, it's quite a content-packed game just on its own, even without the DLC. So, do I recommend Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origins? Well, yeah, actually. I think this game is really unique and a really interesting one to play, especially nowadays because it usually goes on sale for quite cheap. It was removed from PlayStation Plus Extra, like I said at the beginning, but it is a game I think that more people would enjoy than maybe they think they would. I definitely didn't think much of this game. I definitely didn't think I would enjoy it, but here I am, like, blasting through it in a week and then being like, yo, this was good enough to make a video on. I just want to talk about it a little bit. So, it kind of reminded me, like, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover at all times, and this is one of those games that kind of just flew under the radar in terms of wider appeal. I think more people would enjoy this game if they just give it a chance. And like I said, the story itself very weird, and it has some weird plot twists, and you just kind of have to strap yourself in and hold on and let it take you for the ride. And it lands on a pretty cool story point. I was like, oh hey, that's pretty neat. And there are DLC episodes that add new jobs, new weapons, new boss fights, and apparently even some extra story bits. I didn't play that because once again I played it on PlayStation Plus Extras, which doesn't have any DLC added on, but I enjoyed it enough to consider picking this up down the line. But anyway, I don't actually think I have much else to say about this. I think this is one of those hidden gem games that it is not a 10 out of 10. It is not a 10 out of 10, so don't think I'm meaning that, but it's one of those games that I think people will enjoy if they just give it a shot. Anyway, I've been Brian at Valkerion Gaming, and this is maybe the last video of 2024, weirdly. I'm still kind of working through Dragon Quest III HD. It's actually been like 2-3 weeks since I played it, but I swear it's coming, and I hope to get that out soon. I got a new setup in my house, so I actually have a desk now, and I can sit at the desk and I can spare my back and I can project a little more maybe, and hopefully this video sounds clear, everything is better. But yeah, hopefully we'll make more videos in 2025, more gaming stuff, more reviews, so on and so forth. Yeah, that's it for this video. I hope to see you again next time, whether that is later this week or maybe even in 2025. Thank you for sticking around in 2024. Thank you for watching these videos, and I hope to see you again next time. Peace out. Be sure to like, sub, hit the bell for notifications, and that is all.
Chaos.